You know, sometimes the people you expect to protect you the most end up being the ones who hurt you the deepest. My name is Daniel. I'm 20 years old, and this is a story of how my parents told me to my face that the family house I grew up in no longer belonged to me. It was my brother's. But before we get to that moment, the betrayal, I want to take you back. Because this didn't just happen overnight. It was a slow burn, a fire that had been building the shadows for years. Growing up, my older brother, Mark, was always the golden child. He was the star of every family gathering. The one my parents bragged about to neighbors. The one whose trophies lined the shelves in the living room. Straight A's, varsity sports. Charmed with everyone he met. You name it, Mark had it. And then there was me, Daniel. Quiet, bookish, not as athletic, not as charming, and apparently not as lovable. At least that's how it felt. When I came home with a good grade, my mom would barely smile. But when Mark got an award, it was like the whole house lit up with celebration. Birthday parties, praise, even simple affection. Mark always got more. And me? I got the leftovers. Still, I held on. I believed, deep down, that maybe one day they'd see me too. Everything changed the year I turned 18. My grandfather, my mom's father, passed away. He was the only one in the family who ever treated me like I mattered. He used to say, "Danny, you're stronger than you think. One day they'll realize it." After his funeral, the family gathered at the house. People whispered about his will, but no one talked about it openly. All I knew was that he left behind the house, the same house where we all grew up, and deep down I hoped maybe, just maybe, he had thought of me, but I never asked. I didn't want to seem greedy. Fast forward 2 years. I was 20, trying to juggle college classes and a part-time job, barely making ends meet. One evening, I came home and found my parents sitting at the dining table with Mark. Papers were spread out, and their faces looked serious. I asked, "What's going on?" My dad cleared his throat. "Daniel, it's time we tell you. The house, it belongs to Mark now. We decided it's best this way." At first, I thought I misheard. "Wait, what? What do you mean it belongs to Mark?" My mom gave me that cold, dismissive look I'd grown used to. "Your brother is more responsible, Daniel. He's the one who can carry on this family's name. He'll take care of the house, the property, everything. You should focus on making a life somewhere else." Somewhere else. That hit harder than a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a house. It was my childhood, my memories, the one place that still felt like it could be mine. And now, they were telling me it belonged to Mark, just like everything else. I wanted to scream, to ask them how they could do this to me. But instead, I just stood there, frozen. My hands shook, my chest burned, but my voice refused to come out. Mark leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Come on, Danny. Don't act surprised. You've always known I'd be the one to inherit. It just makes sense." His words were like knives. He was enjoying this, watching me break. My dad sighed, almost like he pitied me. "Son, you'll understand when you're older. Mark is simply better suited for responsibility." That's the truth. Better suited, Those two words echoed in my head all night. But here's what they didn't know. A week before this conversation, I had received a strange letter in the mail. It was from my grandfather's lawyer, asking me to meet with him privately. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even my closest friend. At the time, I thought it was just about some old documents or maybe personal belongings my grandfather wanted to have. But now, after hearing my parents say the house was Mark's, something inside me told me that letter was more important than I realized. And suddenly, I remember my grandfather's words. Danny, you're stronger than you think. One day, they'll realize it. Maybe that day was closer than I thought. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My parents' voices replayed in my head. This house belongs to your brother. But deep down, a fire began to burn. What if they were wrong? What if the truth was something they couldn't even imagine? And I knew the next meeting with the lawyer was going to change everything. What would you do if your own parents told you the family house was never yours? Would you fight back, or would you walk away? The morning after my parents dropped the bombshell, I felt like a stranger in my own house. Every hallway, every picture frame on the wall, every memory suddenly felt tainted. It wasn't home anymore. It was Mark's prize, handed him on a silver platter, while I was left with nothing. But I wasn't completely empty-handed. I still had that letter, the one my grandfather's lawyer had sent me. And for the first time, I realized maybe my grandfather had left me something that no one else knew about. A few days later, I found myself sitting across from an older man in a sharp gray suit. His name was Mr. Thompson, my grandfather's longtime attorney. His office smelled of leather and old books, and the shelves were stacked with files that looked decades old. Daniel, he began, sliding a folder across the desk. Your grandfather trusted you. He asked me to keep this private until you were ready. I swallowed hard. Ready for what? He adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. For the truth, my hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside was my grandfather's will. And there, in black and white, was a line that made my heart stop. I leave the family house of my grandson, Daniel, because I know he will protect it, value it, and understand the weight of responsibility. I read it 3 times just to be sure. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes. My grandfather, he had chosen me. Not Mark, not the golden boy. Me. I looked up at Mr. Thompson, my voice barely a whisper. Does anyone else know about this? He shook his head. Not yet. Your parents and brother believe otherwise. But when the time comes, we'll make it official. And just like that, everything changed. Walking out of that office, I felt like I was carrying the heaviest secret in the world. My parents thought I was weak, insignificant. But if they knew the truth, that I was the rightful owner of the house, they'd lose their minds. Part of me wanted to run home and throw the will in their faces, to scream, you were wrong about me. But something told me to wait. Timing was everything. And if my grandfather trusted me with this responsibility, I had to be smart about it. Still, keeping the secret was torture. Every time my mom made a snide remark, every time my dad looked at me with disappointment, every time Mark smirked like he owned everything, I had to bite my tongue. That week, things only got worse. My parents started treating me like I was already gone. My dad actually said, "Daniel, you should start thinking about moving out soon. This place, it's Mark's responsibility now." And Mark? He wasted no time acting like the king of the castle. He rearranged furniture, talked about future renovations, even told me I'd better find a couch somewhere else once he officially took over. One night, he cornered me in the kitchen. "Face it, Danny, you were never cut out for this family. I'm the heir. You're just extra baggage." I clenched my fist so hard my knuckles turned white, but I didn't say a word. Not yet. That same evening, Mr. Thompson called me again. "Daniel, the reading of the will is set for next week. Your parents and brother will all be there. Are you prepared?" Prepared? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. Whatever happened, it was going to be explosive. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror that night, whispering to myself, "You've been invisible long enough. It's time they see you." The days leading up to the reading felt endless. Every dinner turned into a nightmare. My mom criticized everything I did. My dad ignored me completely. And Mark, well, he enjoyed every second of watching me squirm. Finally, 2 days before the meeting, Mark pushed too far. He barged into my room without knocking, tossing a box onto my bed. "Start packing, little brother. This room won't be yours much longer. I'm thinking of turning it into a game room." Something in me snapped. For the first time, I didn't stay silent. I stood up, my voice shaking but firm. "You think you've won, Mark, but you don't even know what's coming." His smirk faltered for the first time. "What's that supposed to mean?" I leaned closer, my eyes locked on his. "Let's just say the house isn't yours yet." He scoffed, but I could see the uncertainty flicker in his eyes. For once, he didn't have a comeback. The night before the will reading, I barely slept. My heart pounded, my mind racing with what was about to unfold. My parents were so sure of themselves. Mark was already celebrating his victory. But tomorrow, in that lawyer's office, everything would change. And I couldn't wait to see the look on their faces when the truth came out. If you had the power to prove your whole family wrong, would you do it quietly, or would you let them feel the shock? The morning of the will reading felt unreal. I sat in the back seat of my dad's car as he drove. Mom chatted with Mark in the front like they were on their way to a party. Mark grinned at me through the rear view mirror. "Don't worry, Danny. Maybe when I move into the house, I'll let you crash in the basement, rent-free. Isn't that generous?" Mom laughed softly, like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. Dad just shook his head, muttering, "Don't tease your brother." But I noticed he didn't tell Mark he was wrong. I clenched my jaw and stared out the window. If only they knew what was about to happen. We arrived at Mr. Thompson's office, a tall, stone building with polished wooden doors. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Mr. Thompson greeted us with his usual calm demeanor. "Good morning, everyone. Please have a seat." We gathered around the long conference table. Mark sat tall, shoulders back, practically glowing with confidence. Mom rested her hand on his, pride written all over her face. Dad sat with quiet approval. And me? I sat silently at the end of the table, my hands gripping the armrest so tightly my knuckles ached. Mr. Thompson opened a leather-bound folder and began. His voice was steady, deliberate. As you know, your father left behind a clear will. Today, I will read his final instructions. The room grew silent. My heart thundered in my chest. Mr. Thompson read through the smaller assets first. Bank accounts, investments, keepsakes. My parents nodded along as if they already knew what to expect. Then, finally, he said the words that made everyone lean in. And now, regarding the family home. Mark's smirk widened. Mom squeezed his hand tighter. Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses, pausing just long enough to make the room hold its breath. Then he read, I leave the family house to my grandson, Daniel. For a second, silence. And then chaos. The explosion. What? Mom shot up from her chair, her face flushed red. That can't be right. Mark's jaw dropped, his cocky grin shattering. No way. That house is mine. Everyone knows it's mine. Dad frowned, his voice unsteady. Are you sure, Mr. Thompson? There must be some mistake. Mr. Thompson calmly slid the official documents across the table. There is no mistake. This is your father's signed will. He made his wishes very clear. I felt the rush of victory flood through me. After years of being ignored, dismissed, treated like nothing, I finally had proof that I was worthy. My grandfather had seen me for who I was. I leaned forward, my voice steady. Guess the golden boy didn't win after all. Mark's face twisted with rage. This isn't fair. You don't deserve it, Daniel. You're just... I cut him off. Just what, Mark? Just invisible? Just the disappointment? Maybe to you, but not to Grandpa. He believed in me. And now this house is mine. The car ride back was dead silent. Mom stared out the window, her lips pressed tight. Dad kept his eyes on the road, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Mark glared at me the entire time, his anger simmering like a storm about to break. When we got home, Mom finally snapped. How could he do this? How could your grandfather betray this family like that? I stood tall, for once not shrinking under her voice. He didn't betray the family. He just finally gave me a chance to exist in it. Mark stormed upstairs, slamming doors as he went. Dad? He just sighed, as if the weight of everything finally hit him. For the first time, I didn't feel like the weak one anymore. They did. In the days that followed, I had choices to make. I could have kicked them out of the house immediately, left them to fend for themselves. And a part of me wanted to. After all the years of insults, neglect, and humiliation, maybe they deserved it. But another part of me remembered my grandfather's words about responsibility. So instead, I set boundaries. I told them, firmly, that the house was mine. If they wanted to live there, it would be under my rules. No more treating me like trash. No more favoring Mark while pushing me aside. At first, they resisted, but slowly, reality set in. Dad apologized, quietly, awkwardly, but sincerely. Mom, well, she took longer. Her pride was too deep. But even she couldn't deny the truth forever. And Mark? He eventually moved out. His ego too big to stay in a house that wasn't his. For the first time in my life, I wasn't in his shadow. He was in mine. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I whispered to myself, "You did it, Daniel. You proved them all wrong." But more than revenge, it felt like freedom, not just from my parents or my brother, but from the invisible chains I've been carrying all my life. Grandpa believed in me, and I finally believed in myself. And here's the thing. When people push you down long enough, they expect you to stay there. They never imagine you'll stand up, fight back, and take everything they thought was theirs. So I want to ask you, if you were in my place, would you forgive your family, or would you make them pay every single day? Because for me, the answer, well, let's just say they'll never forget the day the lawyer spoke.